I am very pleased to introduce our two student speakers, co-presidents of the school, Keely Aouga and Nick Demetroulakos. Keely and Nick, please come up. Take it away.
Good morning, buenos dias, bonjour, sabach al-khair, sao shang hao. I have greeted you all in 5 languages that don't even represent half of the countries and regions that our class and their families make up. To all who have come from near and far, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to Phillips Academy for the celebration of the very unusual but wonderful class of 2019. Before I share some thoughts and reflections, I would like to say that I'm not up here on this podium to give you advice. I am the same age, if not younger, than most of the members of my class. So who am I to tell you how to live in the future when I haven't even been there yet? But I would like to tell you all a story. Specifically, my story at Andover as a Black girl who is a child of proud and strong immigrants, parents, Togolese to be specific. And if the only thing you take away from the speech is the knowledge that Togo is a country in West Africa filled with beautiful people who are too often forgotten, then so be it. I can confidently say that during my 4 years at Andover, I have been surrounded by an immense amount of love from my parents who inspire me to be great, my friends who give me a reason to get up every morning, and adults on campus who represent everything I hope to be and know one day. And yet, I spent a majority of spring term recounting and reflecting on my many, many lows during my time here. I've never been able to put my finger on the cause of my lows, but I know that a majority of them are a result of the culture of Andover. We are so competitive that many of us forget that we are human beings with needs. And most importantly, we forget to love. I'm not one for quoting people in speeches, but there's one thing that my French teacher, the beloved Dr. Ojo, always brought up in class this year. He'd say, "You need to slow down and see one another. You guys are always worried about the stupid things when you need to be there for each other. You need to slow down." Like Dr. Ojo, I know all too well the pool of stress that we call Andover. And feeling recognized is hard when everyone is so wrapped up in the things that make up this community and not the people. As a Black girl on campus, feeling seen has been particularly difficult. Almost every time I look to my left or right, I'm surrounded by faces that look nothing like me, which is sometimes overwhelming. Unlike many of my peers at other predominantly white spaces, I've been fortunate enough to have the support of many of the Black and Latina girls and women on campus. But on a campus this big with so few of us, that just isn't enough. While there are times when speaking to a woman of color was especially helpful, like many of you, other times I just needed somebody. As I'm sure many of you might have felt at some point during your time here, I have felt invisible on this campus. And in those moments, people just seem to be focused on getting 6s, our self-imposed social rules like who gets to sit in lower right, and a preoccupation with ourselves. As teenagers and young adults, we can be self-absorbed and consumed by the inane. We need to start pausing and seeing each other. Many of you might recall the 100 Days Party as a landmark of our time remaining at Andover, but I remember that night as one in which our grade was fully present. Potpourri was handing out superlatives, and Natasha Singaretti announced that Justin Chang won class curve breaker. If you were in lower right at that time, you would know that Justin Chang stole the show. I vividly remember him standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by people cheering from every angle. Nothing else mattered except for the fact that we were united as a class, and we took time to recognize someone who is part of the buildup of our grade. If only we had more of those moments. I just wish that I could list so many more times when the only thing that mattered was the energy in the room and each other. I would like to make it clear that I most certainly do not think that I'm better than any of you. If anything, I spent many days this year questioning if I deserve to be your student body co-president. And I like to think that the answer is yes. Despite this title, I did not have the perfect Andover experience that we all think that our peers have had. Like many of you, I've been ready to graduate for a long time. And like many of you, I have outgrown Andover. After 4 years, I have grown comfortable, but I am ready to explore beyond the town of Andover and be challenged in new ways. And as we begin to enter new communities, it is important that we recognize that we may be asked to pause. More often than not, people forget that they are not the only ones with things to do and people to see, and that has been my Andover experience. And as I wait for my new chapter in college to begin, I can't help but worry about the pace of the new people and community that I will become a part of, because sometimes it's just too hard to catch up. So I ask that we all try to look beyond ourselves and truly be there for the people around us, because we cannot thrive without each other. Earlier, I shared that I have felt immensely loved during my time at Andover, and I attribute that love to people taking time to pause and love. It has been in the moments when my friend took personal time from class to make sure that I wasn't alone and crying, or when a teacher recognized my face on the path that I have felt the most love, and we all need more of those moments in our lives. The sixes and the all-nighters won't mean anything if we don't take the time to love one another. So I want to thank every person that has ever shown me kindness on this campus, hugged me, asked me how I was doing, and seen me on the days when I needed it the most. I encourage you all to take a moment and think about who those people are for you, and remember to tell them that you love them before you leave. Thank you, class of 2019, for all of the love. Thank you for being present with me today and for slowing down on this special day. All my love. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to share some thank yous. A thank you to my parents, though I never called them as much as they would have liked. They were always there for me. A thank you to the multitude of people who have helped me through this experience. They are innumerable and invaluable. A thank you to my roommate for making me laugh every day. And an enormous thank you to my wonderful grandmother, who every week for my entire time here has done my laundry. She is a true hero. Recently, in my classics class with Mr. Mann, in the vein of Homeric storytelling, we were asked to share some stories about our Andover experience. For me, this brought to the forefront of my mind a line of inquiry that I've tried to explore thoroughly throughout my time here. It is the fate of every person to forget. Perhaps it is something to be expected and moved past. I've been a student at Andover for 4 years. For me, they have been a wonderful, formative, and constructive 4 years. I've had so many meaningful experiences, and as I cast about in the deep recesses of my mind, particularly at the end of my upper year for some of these most precious remembrances, I came to a gradual realization. The number of concrete memories I had about Andover was incredibly, terrifyingly, and dishearteningly small. I had these vague, vestigial memories, just feelings, impressions divorced from context. The deep, gentle glow of the library on a late winter night, a warm twilight spread over the lawn, 100 happy voices and faces blurring together. As poignant and important as these nostalgic snapshots were, I was unsatisfied. What had happened to all those conversations, those late nights, that endless laughter? And was it foolish to wish that I had more? Should I have accepted my fate of faded impressions and moved on with my life, knowing that it happened, but never quite seeing it clearly again? And what was to define my Andover going forward? Should it have been these grand peaking moments emblazoned in the folds of my gray matter? Or was it enough to feel the feelings of this place and be satisfied? Regardless, I went into this, my final year, determined to remember. Not just to retain memories, but to make them intentionally and deliberately. In preparing for this endeavor, I had two main plans of attack in my ultimate foolproof plan to dominate my brain and remember the entirety of senior year. At some point in the past few years, I had encountered a video about a man named Jedediah Jenkins. Jedediah quit his job and biked all the way down the western side of the Americas from California to the tip of Chile. His claim was that the schedule was the enemy of time and memory. By disrupting your schedule, he argued, you engaged your brain, and when your brain was awake and alive and uncomfortable, time slowed down and memories flourished. This resonated with me as I thought about my years at Andover, a place dominated by schedule. It did seem that the days were long and the weeks were short, and that governing myself based on schedule made the time fly by. So I planned to push myself outside my comfort zone to try to engage my brain beyond the schedule. Another thing I've always wanted to do, but have been oftentimes too lazy, was to document my time here. So I made a blood oath with myself that I would take a photo every day. It didn't have to be extraordinary. It didn't have to be art. It was simply a reminder of one thing I did that day, one person I saw, one conversation I had. I'd like to share some reflections on these exercises, potentially as something to take on to your next steps. For me, the breaking of routine was incredibly difficult. When I was in the grind, when I was repeating the same schedule every day, every week, it was so hard to break out. You need, as a very wise person recently shared with me, to take the side roads, to jump at opportunity. I think, to a large extent, I failed in this. I was too good at finding excuses and reasons not to do something. I was too good at convincing myself that a certain hour could be better spent. And so, more often than not, I chose to do work over something new or engaging or uncomfortable. The times I did push myself, however, are embedded or seared deeply in my mind. I will never, ever, 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 ever forget crouching in the mud under a bridge in the sanctuary, staring down the hungry lens of Andrew Stern's camera and sinking my teeth into a whole raw haddock. My photographic endeavor was significantly easier to maintain. I was mostly successful in taking at least one photo every day. Looking back now, I have my year arrayed beautifully in a million different pixels of color. A photo of my roommate and I, grins plastered on our faces, giddy with the power and freedom of our first senior hour. It's not that good. It's not. A photo of some former prefectees as we lounged on the balcony outside of Burt House, the reddish pink of the sunset coloring their faces. 1,000 photos and videos of under the bed practice, mostly of Harry wreaking havoc as I tried so unsuccessfully to bring order. And so many faces, over dinner in Commons, on the lawn, in the boathouse, in Steinbach, everywhere. Many of these photos are unremarkable, and most people would probably delete them. But the associations, the dates, the times, the locations, the feelings that are paired with them make them infinitely precious to me. When something happens, our brain begins processing it and creates a connection between two neurons. The more unexpected, surprising, new, and unprecedented an event is, the stronger the initial connection. Think eating a raw fish. The more we call upon this connection and it fires, the stronger and more ingrained the memory becomes. Every time I saw one of the photos I had taken, it called on that connection I had created in my mind, strengthening whichever memory stood pasted there. There is one other thing I discovered. To simply take moments of silence, 5-10 minutes, to reflect on your day, to reflect on a memory, is clinically proven to help you remember things longer and more clearly. Perhaps this is a fool's errand, to deliberately strive to remember. And perhaps the slow decay of these memories will be made all the more poignant with the failure of a concerted effort to remember. But to never try would be the true tragedy. So my charge for you today is twofold. First, reflect on your time here. Identify those things that most stand out to you and make an effort to cement them in your mind. Reflect. Second, carry this into the future, wherever you may be going. Consider how precious each moment can be and make an effort to document it. Take the side roads or take a photo. Do something. All I can hope is that in 10 or 20 years, when life may seem gray and my head has been bowed and my shoulders made to ache by the iron weight of adult responsibility, I can look to my mind and feel so keenly the warmth, hear so clearly the laughter, and see so vividly this life I will soon leave behind, but will never, ever forget. Thank you.